Imagine finding a weathered map in your attic, its cryptic symbols hinting at buried treasure. Now, imagine that map detailing not gold, but the trajectory of human history itself. 10 centuries before the events unfolded, we often dismiss prophecies as folklore, relics of a superstitious past. Yet some ancient pronouncements have resonated so profoundly with reality that they compel us to reconsider their origins and implications. Are they mere coincidences, cleverly interpreted to fit the narrative after the fact, or do they represent something more profound? A glimpse into the unfolding tapestry of time? This journey isn't about blindly accepting fate, but about exploring the enduring human fascination with predicting the future and the surprisingly concrete ways in which some of those predictions seem to have manifested. Think about the last time you encountered a news headline that felt eerily familiar. A sense of déjà vu amplified by the weight of historical precedent. We live in an age of unprecedented access to information, yet we often grapple with the same anxieties and uncertainties that plagued our ancestors. Perhaps, then, the enduring appeal of prophecy lies not in its ability to foretell the future with absolute certainty, but in its capacity to reflect our deepest fears and aspiration back at us, filtered through the lens of time. This isn't a quest to prove or disprove the existence of psychic abilities, but rather an investigation into the complex relationship between belief, expectation, and historical outcome. We're not just looking at what was said, but also at how those words have been interpreted and reinterpreted across generations, shaping our understanding of the past and influencing our actions in the present. We've all heard of Nostradamus, the 16th century apothecary whose cryptic quatrains have been endlessly scrutinized for clues about everything from world wars to natural disasters. But his is just one voice in a chorus of prophets whose pronouncements have echoed through the ages. From the biblical prophecies foretelling the rise and fall of empires, to the indigenous traditions that speak of cycles of destruction and renewal. The challenge, of course, lies in separating genuine insight from vague pronouncements that can be bent to fit any number of events. It's a delicate dance between acknowledging the potential for genuine foresight and recognizing the human tendency to find patterns where none exist. This exploration demands a critical eye, a willingness to question assumptions, and an open mind to the possibility that the past may hold more secrets than we realize. Consider the impact of prophecy on human behavior. Does the belief in a predetermined future empower us to change course, or does it lull us into a state of passive acceptance? How do prophecies shape our understanding of morality, justice, and the very nature of reality? These are not merely academic questions. They are fundamental to understanding how we navigate the world and make decisions about our future. We are constantly bombarded with predictions, economic forecasts, climate models, technological projections, all of which shape our expectations and influence our actions. By examining the historical track record of ancient prophecies, we can gain valuable insights into the power and peril of prediction itself. It's about understanding that prophecies, whether divinely inspired or purely speculative, can act as self-fulfilling prophecies, subtly altering the course of events through the very act of anticipating them. This journey will take us through the corridors of history, examining specific prophecies and their apparent fulfillment. We'll delve into the cultural contexts in which these prophecies arose, exploring the beliefs and anxieties that shaped their creation. We'll analyze the language used by the prophets, looking for clues about their intended meanings and the ways in which their words have been interpreted over time. And most importantly, we'll grapple with the fundamental question of whether these fulfilled prophecies represent evidence of divine intervention, the power of human intuition, or simply the inevitable consequences of human actions played out on the grand stage of history. The goal isn't to provide definitive answers, but to spark curiosity, encourage critical thinking, and invite you to join us in exploring the enduring mystery of prophecy. Now, let's turn our attention to specific cases where prophetic utterances seem to have mirrored subsequent events with unsettling accuracy. Consider, for instance, the prophecies surrounding the decline of the Roman Empire. While attributing specific quotes to precise fulfillments is often fraught with interpretative challenges the general sense of impending doom, moral decay, and external pressures permeates numerous texts from that era. Think of the Sibylline Oracles, a collection of writings attributed to prophetic priestesses, which warned of internal strife and barbarian invasions long before they reached their zenith. Conversely, these pronouncements could be seen not as supernatural foresight, but astute observations of societal vulnerabilities and geopolitical realities that already pointed towards eventual collapse. The power lay not in predicting the future, but in diagnosing the present with piercing accuracy. Another crucial layer is the interpretation of biblical prophecies, particularly those concerning the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. The Gospels, for example, contain Jesus' predictions regarding the temple's demise, which occurred in 70 AD during the Roman siege. Skeptics often argue that these passages were written after the event, reflecting a retrospective interpretation of history rather than genuine prophecy. On the other hand, proponents point to the specificity of certain details, such as the absence of one stone left upon another, as evidence of authentic foresight. The debate hinges on the dating of the texts and the degree to which they accurately reflect the historical context. This leads us to ponder, can prophecy influence the event it foretells? Or is it simply a passive observation of an inevitable unfolding, moving beyond the ancient world? We find similar patterns in more recent history. The prophecies of Alois Erlmeyer, a Bavarian well-digger who lived in the 20th century, have gained notoriety for their alleged predictions of World War III and other global catastrophes. Erlmeyer's visions, often couched in symbolic language, describe widespread destruction, societal upheaval, and the rise of new political powers. While many of his prophecies remain unfulfilled, some observers point to parallels between his descriptions and contemporary geopolitical tensions. However, it's essential to acknowledge the potential for selective interpretation and the tendency to find connections where none genuinely exist. Consider, for example, how easily vague pronouncements about conflict can be adapted to fit various regional disputes. The story of the Titanic presents another compelling case study. Prior to its maiden voyage, numerous individuals reported premonitions of disaster, ranging from vivid dreams to unsettling feelings of unease. Some accounts even describe fictional narratives that mirrored the actual events of the sinking with remarkable detail. While these anecdotes may be dismissed as coincidence or products of heightened anxiety, they raise intriguing questions about the nature of intuition and the potential for collective unconscious awareness. Perhaps these premonitions weren't glimpses into the future, but rather subconscious responses to subtle cues and underlying risks associated with the voyage. Conversely, consider the role of folklore and cultural narratives in shaping our perception of prophetic fulfillment. Many cultures possess myths and legends that speak of cyclical patterns of history, predicting periods of prosperity followed by decline and eventual renewal. These narratives often serve as cautionary tales, reminding us of the consequences of hubris, greed, and societal decay. When historical events seem to align with these pre-existing narratives, it can create a powerful sense of prophetic validation, even if the connection is largely symbolic. In effect, the prophecy becomes a lens through which we interpret the past, shaping our understanding of the present and influencing our expectations for the future. Reflecting on this journey so far, we begin to perceive a landscape not of absolute certainties, but of echoing possibilities. It's as if we've been tracing the course of a river, starting from disparate springs high in the mountains, only to find them converging into a single, powerful current flowing towards an unseen sea. The individual prophecies, the historical echoes, the cultural narratives, all these elements begin to coalesce, revealing a deeper, more nuanced understanding of humanity's relationship with time and anticipation. The recurring motif isn't necessarily the accurate prediction of specific events, but rather the enduring human impulse to seek meaning and order in the face of uncertainty. We are, by nature, pattern-seeking creatures, constantly striving to connect the dots and construct narratives that make sense of our world. Prophecy, in this light, becomes less about foretelling the future and more about providing a framework for understanding the present. It's a way of grappling with our anxieties, articulating our hopes, and ultimately shaping our actions. Consider the cumulative effect of these prophetic narratives on the collective psyche. They act as both mirrors and maps, reflecting our deepest fears and aspiration back at us while simultaneously charting potential. Pathways through the labyrinth of time, they are not merely passive observations of the future, but active forces that can influence the very course of events they purport to predict. This dynamic interplay between prophecy and reality is perhaps the most compelling aspect of our exploration, a constant reminder that the future is not a fixed destination, but a landscape shaped by our choices and beliefs. As we approach the final reflection, it's crucial to resist the temptation to reduce this complex tapestry to a simple binary of true or false. The value of prophecy lies not in its predictive accuracy, but in its capacity to stimulate critical thinking, challenge our assumptions, and deepen our understanding of the human condition. It invites us to consider the power of belief, the influence of cultural narratives, and the subtle ways in which our expectations can shape our reality. The echoes of the past, therefore, are not merely whispers of what was, but resonant chords that continue to vibrate in the present. They remind us that we are all, in a sense, prophets of our own lives, constantly projecting ourselves into the future and making choices that will ultimately determine our destiny. The question is not whether we can predict the future with certainty, but whether we can learn from the past and shape the future with wisdom and compassion. The path forward, illuminated by these insights, calls for a balanced approach. We must remain skeptical of simplistic interpretations and resist the allure of fatalism, while simultaneously acknowledging the power of human intuition and the potential for collective awareness. It's a call to embrace uncertainty, cultivate critical thinking, and engage with the world with both hope and vigilance. In the end, the allure of ancient prophecies isn't about possessing a crystal ball that reveals the future with unwavering clarity. It's about holding a mirror up to ourselves individually and collectively, and glimpsing the timeless patterns of human behavior reflected back at us. These prophecies, whether divinely inspired, cleverly constructed, or purely coincidental, serve as potent reminders of our enduring hopes, our deepest fears, and our inherent capacity for both creation and destruction. They are not so much roadmaps to a predetermined destiny as they are cautionary tales and aspirational visions, urging us to navigate the present with greater awareness and intention. Think of the prophecies not as immutable decrees etched in stone, but as echoes resonating through the corridors of time, each carrying a fragment of wisdom gleaned from the experiences of generations past. They whisper of the cyclical nature of history, the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of human fortune. They remind us that the challenges we face today, conflict, inequality, environmental degradation, are not entirely new, but rather manifestations of age-old struggles played out on a contemporary stage. And in recognizing these patterns, we gain a measure of agency, a sense of empowerment to break free from the chains of repetition and chart a new course. The power of prophecy, then, lies not in its ability to predict specific events with pinpoint accuracy, but in its capacity to inspire critical reflection and ethical action. It challenges us to examine our own beliefs and assumptions, to question the narratives that shape our understanding of the world, and to consider the potential consequences of our choices. It invites us to cultivate empathy, to recognize our interconnectedness with all of humanity, and to strive for a future that is more just, more sustainable, and more compassionate. The search for meaning in these ancient pronouncements is, ultimately, a search for meaning in our own lives. It's an acknowledgement that we are all part of a larger story, a grand tapestry woven from the threads of the past, the present, and the future. And while we may not be able to see the entire design, we can each contribute to its beauty and complexity. By living with purpose, integrity, and a deep sense of responsibility for the world we inhabit, the true practice begins now, not in deciphering cryptic texts, but in embodying the timeless values of wisdom, compassion, and courage in our daily lives.